let's start with hands. So this is bad CG, right? This is out of the gate what your rig comes in as: stiff, straight, just very boring. And this is more organic, right? You can see the difference just in shifting those fingers a little bit, relaxing them. And relaxing them doesn't mean straight, because again, remember, we have tendons, we have muscles, there's tension in our hands at all times. So there is a slight curve to them. It actually takes effort to straighten your fingers out. So this is far more organic. This shows a bit of relaxation. But this is even better. The wrist is turned inward, right? Right here, the wrist is perfectly straight. This doesn't just apply to the fingers, right? Involving the wrist too, twisting the wrist in a little bit is even better. So CG versus organic, right? You get the knuckles tightening in towards each other, creating this really nice crunch, right? If you want to put arrows into it, everything's forcing into the middle of the palm, right, where all that tension is being held. And there's an arc to the knuckles. It's not just this perfectly straight, right? The arc to it really lending itself to this organic, intense pose. Another aspect is grouping. When you're talking about fingers, you consider grouping. Grouping is just finding a few fingers just to kind of keep together, just for like a nice pose. You know, it's not bad to have the fingers splayed out, but if you do that all the time, it doesn't feel right. But if you watch nature, you'll see that there's groupings all the time. Any sort of classic paintings, anything, there's, in real life too, there's groupings as shown here, you know. So trying to find an opportunity to address that and add that to your shot will make it far more dynamic, far more appealing, and again, that word organic, right? Make it feel natural. So CG and organic CG, again, doesn't just mean the wrist. We're talking about, or excuse me, the fingers. It means the wrist too. It's not a perfectly straight line. You break it up by having some bends in there, some curves, some edges, right? There's a bit of a flow to it. These are some example poses. Definitely look to traditional 2D animated films like The Iron Giant. It's got some great examples of hand poses and how they choose to pose out the fingers in the hand is incredibly appealing. Some traditional animations. Something about older people, their hands are very just incredibly expressive. You know, the hands can tell a lot about the person. You got some groupings going on up here, grouping those fingers. It's really nice to have your index finger relax over your thumb. So having this sort of like this feeling like this when you relax and you drop your fingers down. So in the future, when you're doing dialogue shots and the character's talking and then there's a moment where they kind of hold, you get a nice pose. You get a bit of grouping in this pose, and your pointer finger is just resting on your thumb. It's a very nice default kind of pose to be in. So finding that opportunity in the shot too that you're working on. Again, the same kind of grouping. You're grouping the last three, but also it's not wrong to have, you know, this paddle hands type, you know, but using this sparingly and really accentuating the thumb in when it comes to paddle hands, because you don't want to just like a perfectly, you know, just like cupped Lego hand, you know. There's still personality in this, how that thumb's kind of stretched out. The fingers are curved together, but it's not like an obvious exaggerated bend. It's just kind of a slight bend. The pinky's somewhat overlapping all the other fingers. They aren't just like perfectly straight together. Pinky's just kind of above the ring finger that's kind of above the middle finger. There's some examples. Again, a lot of this pertains to 2D, but we can still utilize these principles in CG. Smaller finger opens last and closes first. That's like a general kind of a thing when you're doing fists or coming out of a fist. The smallest finger opens last but closes first. You can there's obviously exceptions to that rule, but generally speaking, if you're not sure what to do, you know, there's a little rule for you.